next I wanted to see what would happen to my model if I put in other drugs which weren't lung cancer drugs. So we're seeing quite a consistent pattern across the ones that I've studied, or most of the ones that I've studied, where you get a lot more prevalence in the broad southeast compared to the north, and sometimes you get also with alkans, for what it's worth, a small population size of METX14 skip, and you seem to get high prevalence in the southwest. So I wanted to see, is it the case of whatever drug I choose, it just always comes up like that, in which case there's something wrong with what I've done, something wrong with my model if whatever drug I put in always comes up with the same patterns. So I chose a few drugs just to see what would happen. The first one that I chose was actually gilteritinib, and the reason why is that simply because I've heard of it. Gilteritinib is a drug prescribed, approved for acute myeloid leukemia, and the reason why I've heard of it is because there's been some studies, I think, on mice that showed that it had some efficacy for treating ALK after lorlatinib as resistance. So that's basically why I'd heard of it, because it's spoken about in the ALK community a bit. So I thought I'd just test it out and see. This is, as far as I know, it's only used for acute myeloid leukemia in the UK. So I thought I'd test it out. First of all, I had it for 20. When I did this, I only had the 2022 data and 2021. And I was a bit 2020. The early years don't really have very much of a population size, but when I first did it with the 2022 data, I've got to say I was a bit disappointed because it was showing a greater prevalence in the southeast. I later added in some of the earlier maps, and it seems to flip around a bit. The population size is a bit low, and then I later added in the 2023 data. The population size is a bit disappointing, so it's probably not a great drug to choose for that. It does flip around a bit. There's no statistical significance. Briefly, there's southwest is higher, quite high, but there doesn't seem to be any statistical significance there. So yeah, that was, tried it, didn't really prove too much one way or another. Then I thought tamoxifen, I've heard of that, it's a breast cancer drug. So I put that in, and a nice population size here. We got about 1,500, even approaching 2,000 in the early years, so a decent population size. And I was really quite pleased to see that yes, my model isn't always inherently showing greater prevalence in the southeast. Here we're seeing it more prevalent in the north. I would have expected, I don't know much about breast cancer. I probably would have, tamoxifen I know has been approved. Even my nan took it 30 odd years ago, so it's been around for decades, and I would have assumed it's fairly evenly distributed across the UK, across England. Seems to be, there's no statistical significance here, so it seems to be. There is, for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason, very high statistical significance in the north back in 2019. I'm not really sure why that was, but the rest of it just seems to be, it's generally more common in the north, but there's no real significance there. The next one that I tried was another breast cancer drug called anastrozole. Now, the reason why I actually heard this came in the news in November 2020, 23. So that's the reason why I heard of it. Was it was widely reported in the public media 7th of November 2023 that anastrozole had shown efficacy in preventing breast cancer in postmenopausal women at high risk of the disease. I don't think it's actually been approved by NICE yet, but there was some interesting data on that. There's the population size is also quite good as well, so that's all very good actually. We again seeing more prevalence in the north. It's actually quite very high, statistically highly significant in the north compared to the southeast. So again, this is a case where, you know, the southeast it's quite a lot lower for whatever reason. I'm also seeing quite a lot more prevalence in the southwest for that, again for whatever reason. I don't know whether, I mean, looking at the detailed maps, you can see there's it's very highly prescribed in Cornwall for I don't know why. Maybe it's part of, you know, this trial that was going on for a number of years, and it seems to be there seems to be hot spots in Nottingham again. I presume it's because of this trial that have been going on. So again, this proves that my model doesn't inherently always favour the southeast, because we've got you know, we've got a different pattern here. And then the last one I tried was binimetinib. This is for melanoma, unresectable or metastatic BRAF V600 mutation positive melanoma. I don't know much about that particular type of cancer, but I put the drug in. It's used in conjunction, I think, with used with encorafenib, but I've just chosen the one binimetinib. Population size is not that great. But I suppose it's reasonable, I suppose, in the later years. We are getting statistical significance in the southeast, for broad southeast, for whatever reason, but the population and quite highly so in 2023. It seems to be, though, very highly skewed to Cornwall and Hampshire. So I don't know what the reasons are for it being in those particular two regions, but it's so highly prescribed in those two regions that it's skewing the whole data for England by the looks of it. I don't know enough about that cancer to know why that would be. Maybe there's some trials going on or something that because that is both of those are incredibly high, so I guess there's something strange going on, some trials going on, but I don't know what they are. So those are my 4 control drugs, and I did do actually also some annual analysis for those for tamoxifen. We saw some it tends to be similar hospitals are in the top 10, the green top 10 here, from year to year. Anastrozole, again, very similar top 10 hospitals over the years. I did a similar thing with the Clatterbridge that I did with, I think also with tamoxifen, that I did with the lung cancer TKIs, where the data coming from the Clatterbridge in later years, 2021, 2022 and 2023, just didn't seem to be right, so I had to just use the 2020 data. Binimetinib, for what it's worth, there's not too many on, it's not a particularly big population size compared to the two, but again, similar, mostly similar hospitals prescribing that. So that's my control drugs for that I've used.